Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Jake, Jordan, and John Luke podcast. This is a podcast only for people whose name starts with J. So that's why it's just us here today.
I was really wondering where you were going to run with that when you were like episode 2. I'm like, holy fuck.
It's a comeback tour, I would say. We good?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I see levels. I think we're good.
Levels, we're good. All right. No, it's episode 160 of GameSpot After Dark. Tamora is busy. Lucy is not feeling great. So it's us, once again, holding down the fort. But I think that's okay, because we got plenty to talk about. We're going to go through what we've been playing. We've got a couple topics of the week that we want to discuss. We've got our weekly question, and that'll probably wrap up the show. But before we get to that, I guess we can just start with what we've been playing, right?
Yeah, right.
I was
like, do we have anything
else?
Yeah.
I mean, I got a pretty bad paper cut yesterday, but that's probably not worth talking about.
I got my new computer monitor finally showed up.
Oh, yeah. How is that?
Oh, well, it showed up like an hour ago. It was supposed to arrive on Monday, and FedEx has been like doing that thing where they keep saying like, we tried to deliver it, but no one was there. And I was like, bitch, you didn't call me. I'm here. I am here.
There was someone always there. And this is important. Is this a replacement monitor or is this a second monitor?
Replacement monitor.
Okay.
So
But it's a wide.
Ultra wide.
Ultra
I'm getting a
wide.
nice ultra wide monitor. I dished out for I think it's called the Alienware QD OLED, like AW something.
A lot of words and letters.
It's a lot of words and letters. It's like their new Samsung's like new like QD OLED technology, so it's supposed to look like really, really good. It's does like 175 hertz and all this like nonsense, and apparently does really good HDR for monitors, which normally PC monitors do like garbage HDR.
You're trying to live the single monitor life, too, right?
I am, because my desk is not big enough to support multiple monitors without just
quitter's
being
talk,
a
John.
mess.
I want you to do a video about that single life monitor life, because that single monitor life, because
That's like a reality.
because
TV
I
show
very
or something.
much want to downsize to one ultra wide monitor because I'm sick of having two.
I think the weird thing will be like having to get used to playing games in ultra wide. I've like dabbled with that before, but I've never like owned a ultra wide. It's always just been like I've messed with it in the office. And I know like most modern games are good about it, but like playing older games is going to be weird. Or like capture, like if I have to capture for work, I'll probably have to make it 16:9, right? Like I can't.
Probably.
Unless
Even then,
suddenly everything GameSpot does is now ultra wide.
Every single video.
Hey G Huga in the chat says monitor arms free up so much desk space. I got monitor arms
Yes.
last year. Probably the best investment.
I
that
also
I've
have a
done
monitor
for my
arm.
desk. It is so nice. I just have so much extra space, and it looks so much nicer.
Yeah.
The only thing I hate is that I've just got a mess of wires under my desk.
Yes, my wire. I'm going to take this as an opportunity to completely redo my cable management because it's currently bad.
I feel like ARMs though are like the stepping stone to like then getting 3 monitors. Like it's like the key to being like,
Not for me.
I can now like put things like on top of other monitors and because that's what happened to Tam. Like Tam rocks I think 3 monitors now.
Tam's setup is insane. He also has 2 microphones.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Oh
understand.
yeah,
His like recording microphone and his like Twitch streaming microphone.
and it's all in a closet too, which
Yes.
is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a good setup, but no, I don't. Jordan, I have a very small desk. I just do not have the space for all that. If I had like a really nice, like big old desk
just
with a
destroy
lot
your
of
lease
space,
and like inject it into the wall and have them on.
We wall mounted our TV recently and we messed it up, and let me just say that we have already destroyed
So the
lease.
deposit's gone.
The deposit is probably gone. Either that or we're gonna have to get some real heavy duty spackle to cover that one up.
So the thing is, especially because you live in an apartment building, right? Not
Yeah.
like so. They're going to redo all those walls anyway. Even
That's
if you
true.
didn't do much damage to them, they are going to go through and repair them.
Yeah.
They're probably going to charge you more because there is damage, but I don't think it's going to mess things up
No,
too
I
much.
think it'll
Unless
be
you
okay.
have like full on holes through the drywall. Then that like
Well-
fist size holes through the drywall. I'm not talking little holes.
Sure, there is one There's a big old nail I have to pull out of the wall. Let's just say that.
Okay.
A big old nail.
Yeah, let's just put it that way. I'm worried. I'm a little worried about that, but otherwise, yeah, it'll be good.
Serious Business is also in the chat. Mentions, did you guys see the new Samsung 34 curved monitor with built-in Xbox Cloud
It
gaming?
looks really nice.
That's
Yes.
pretty cool.
It also has Stadia in it, which I find is funny. 'Cause
Yeah,
no one cares.
I saw like the weird because
Sorry, what? It's got what?
This new technology that's going to take over the world.
Huh.
Google's really getting into it.
Interesting.
Stadia.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, is that like a
Future of cloud gaming, they said.
Is that like Luma? Is that
Yeah, I think it's like similar spheres. Like they're going to dominate the space together.
copying Amazon, huh?
There's a question for you. Is Stadia the plural of stadium?
Are you asking this to me because I'm like the
You're an editor. Yeah, you're an
person?
editor. That's why I'm
Right.
asking you. I was watching what's it called? Welcome to Wrexham. I don't know if you guys know this, but it's Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought in for a club soccer team in Wrexham.
Oh yeah,
And there's a point where they say it's one of the oldest stadias in the world, or stadia in the world, and I was like, I've never heard someone use that word apart
Stadia.
from the Stadia, Google Stadia. So I don't know.
Is that what they called it, Stadia? Because like
I figured like multiple stadiums that are like
Stadia is indeed the correct Latin plural of stadium. It is, however, far more common for English speakers to use stadiums.
interesting.
how does that relate to cloud gaming? I'm trying to think.
So Google looked and it's like, what would be the perfect word for cloud gaming? The plural form of stadium.
To be fair, it's not a bad name.
No,
it's just didn't
It's just
work
not a
out
great
too well.
service.
Yeah,
It's okay. The most I would use it for, shout out to David Amati, who would buy cheap Stadia subscriptions. I'm calling him out so hard right now, so that he could log into Destiny, which had its own like version on Stadia that was unique to itself. Like the player base was entirely contained within Stadia, so there were less people. So he would use it to get easy wins in Trials of Osiris, so he could get like all the way to the lighthouse. I'm calling him the fuck out about that.
He's using the internet here too, the high speed, gigabyte internet, and everyone's trying to make it work on their crappy internet. Mm-hmm. Jeez. Anyway,
You can't do that trick anymore. I think they folded it in with PC.
yeah,
now.
probably. Anyway, should we talk about what we've been playing?
Yeah, you've been playing a big one.
I've been playing a big one. Do we want to start with The Last of Us? Do we want to end on The Last of Us? How do we feel?
I mean, you've already mentioned it. I feel like we should just dive into this.
I feel like that's exactly how we did it last time
Yeah,
too.
essentially.
Yeah, just started right.
Yeah,
well,
we're into it.
I reviewed Last of Us.
Yeah.
The review's
Good
there.
review.
People can read it if they want probably more condensed thoughts, because I might go on tangents every now and then.
What's the
But
score? Tell me the score.
The score's an 8.
Okay.
And then,
You don't need to talk anymore. I know the score now.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Was it objective?
We're good. Move on. That was an interesting review. Not to get too inside baseball, but we already have a Last of Us review that was written a long time ago.
Sure.
By Tom McShay. We have a review for Left Behind, which was also written by Tom McShay a long time ago. I think we did an updated review for the remastered version. And originally we were going to do an updated review for this one, this remake, but I ended up having a lot to say. So we turned it into a full review, but it's still an 8, even though my personal, this is where it gets tricky, because GameSpot scale, it's an 8. But my scale, I love The Last of Us. One of my favorite games of all time. This remake is very good. It makes an already really good game even better. It doesn't do a whole lot of different things, which I know it bums out some people, and to an extent it bums me out. Most particularly, some of the puzzles that kind of suck are still there. However, thanks to all the accessibility stuff, if you want to play Last of Us but don't want to do the puzzles, you can just skip them.
Skip them.
You can
Hell
skip
yeah.
right through.
Saw that option.
Which is something I didn't mention in the review, and I kind of regret it, because I think my point still stands about hey, it's kind of dated that I'm pushing Ellie around on a pallet And it's weird that Joel never taught her how to swim through the course of this very long.
Or every time you have to grab a dumpster and
Every
move
time
it
you
away.
have
Going
to push
across the
a
country
dumpster.
and they just never
Like-
bother.
like it's cool you can skip that stuff, and I understand why people would, but even though I don't like it, I never would, because it's that whole experience, I think, that
It was designed to be
see.
a part of the game. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's The Last of Us. If you really like The Last of Us, you're probably really gonna like this. If you played The Last of Us already and you don't really think you need to replay it, then it's probably not your kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, if you like it, go for it.
Cool.
If you don't, the big thing missing is multiplayer, which I'm bummed about,
faction.
because I did play a lot of factions when it came out, and I know Naughty Dog's working on a like full-fledged multiplayer Last of Us game, which is cool, but I think there's something to be said about like that the history, like preserving that mode in some form, and you can still technically play it now, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It does feel like a bummer. That
I'm with you. I felt the same way about the Uncharted collection, which didn't include the multiplayer for 2 and 3 that I love personally.
Yeah.
And they shut those down a couple of years ago. So you just can't play those anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like
Happened
a real bummer.
with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition as well. Didn't bring back Mass Effect 3 multiplayer.
Yeah, right? Yeah. What's up with that?
That was even weirder because that was tied to the campaign in
Yeah.
some sense. It was weird because
Man, it was stupidly popular.
yeah, it was weird because you could still go to those stages in single player. Like there was those little missions you could do, but you couldn't actually do multiplayer stuff, which was kind of a bummer. But yeah, I mean, I get the argument that like this didn't fundamentally change enough, but I am kind of the camp that I don't think it necessarily needed to. I think that story is so strong. Those characters are so good. And Jean-Luc's smashing things.
I disagree.
And I think like the facelifts all the characters have had actually add a lot to the story. I mean, obviously it's not going to change your idea of these characters or recontextualize them, but I think if you look at the PlayStation 3 version, those characters didn't look as good as you remember them.
No. Well,
Because I even, when I saw The Last of Us announced, Last of Us Part 1 announced, I was like, Last of Us looks really good still. Like, it doesn't need this.
And then you go back and
And then
look
I
at
went
it.
back to play it, and I was like, whoa. Like, some of the environments in The Last of Us original still look pretty good.
but even then, because I was helping capture the original PS3 version for you, which when I was playing it at the time for like, I was just like, dang, this game holds up really well. Like just playing it, I was like, wow, this still looks really good. And I do believe like that game artistically was like way ahead of its time, like pushed the PS3 to its absolute limit. And then I
Yeah,
was
it
like,
did. My PS3 was loud when I was playing
Yeah,
that game.
it was struggling.
That was a game that I know they wanted to get it out for PS3, but I'm like, man, this was definitely a PS4.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, it
game.
was struggling to hit that 30 frames a lot of times when I was capping, but I was like, yeah, this holds up really well, and I was kind of like shocked how good it looked. And then I played a little bit of the PS5 version at the office here for the graphics comparison, and I was like, holy crap, these environments look crazy. Because if you go and look at our graphics comparison we have up on YouTube, it's because it's like, yeah, the faces are like, sure, that's an obvious thing you can look at, but like they completely redid a lot of the architecture of the buildings and the streets, and they have this level of detail to them that I found myself like sucked in more and it feeling more like a real place. Not to say like, you know, that like the original game like doesn't do that, but it just like that, I think that elevates that stuff in a way that is to me meaningful, at least, you know.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that is another reason why a lot of those puzzles stand out even more to me, because the game, in theory, right, when you look at the visuals, even the gameplay, I think is much better than it was in the original. The game feels better, it looks better, but then you get to these puzzles and it feels like a game from 2013. I mean,
from
even
two
at
console
the time,
generations ago.
even at the time, I remember being like, okay, these dumpster puzzles are kind of dumb, but this is still one of my favorite games of all time. And now, like, it's a little harder to justify that again after all of this time. All that said, though, like, it's a really good remake, I would say. And if you haven't played The Last of Us, I don't think you would regret paying $70 for this. Sure, you could, if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you could play The Last of Us remastered for free if you have PlayStation Plus. But like, I don't know, if you've never played Last of Us and you want to go from Last of Us 1 to 2, I would, if it's within your means, I would strongly consider.
Or just wait.
Or wait. That's the other thing too. Like in a couple months, this is probably going to be added to, what is it, extra premium?
Right, exactly.
One of those, you know?
Or again,
I
or
mean,
even just
also
on
the
sale.
holiday season is coming up, so like Black Friday, like some stores gonna sell it at a discount.
Yeah, like that's the
They're
easy.
not Nintendo. The price is going to drop.
Exactly. and to me, that's like, if that's how you feel about, like, you know, if you very strongly feel like, hey, I don't agree with the pricing of this and think Sony's being greedy or whatever,
Yeah.
like, that's the way to prove it.
Yeah,
Is
which-
either don't buy it or buy it on sale. And Sony will see those numbers and say, wow, way more people bought it on sale than they did, you know, for $70. Ooh, maybe that pricing didn't make sense, or maybe they won't care. You know, who knows?
And I mean, it's weird for me to talk too much about pricing, right? Because Sony provided me with a code to review the game. But I did buy the game. Like, I bought it on PS5 because I was like, I want this game because I really like it. And if a friend hasn't played it, I want to be like, hey, you just got a PS5, you got to play Last of Us. Here's my copy, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I do kind of want to buy a physical version of it just so I can have part 1 and part 2 like
Next
on
to
my
each
shelf
other.
right
Next to
next
each other,
to
yeah.
each
I thought
other.
about the same.
I have a suspicion that I think there was a leak a while ago.
I'll do a bundle.
that they were gonna do a like director's cut of Last of Us Part 2, which might make sense because it sounds like there was a lot that was cut, but also
That game's already so fucking long.
it's
though.
such a long game, and I'm like, the pacing of that game I think is weird.
I
too.
remember
I
because
agree.
like one of the rumors was like, oh, in the director's cut they might like interchange it, that it will be in part 2 it'll be Ellie Day 1, Abby Day 1, Ellie Day 2,
Oh,
Abby Day
interesting.
2.
That
So,
could be
like,
kind of cool.
you get to experience like the days simultaneously.
I wonder how that would change it, because
I assume at some point the devs tested it that way. Like someone was like, should we at least try it? And they like went through it and like, it just doesn't work as well as we.
yeah, because I think the shock of like fully switching halfway through worked really well, but then I also wonder, like, if you know going in,
Like if you
that will
could
it be
see like
paced better?
both stories ramping up at the same time, and like
Yeah.
Ellie's day 3 ends on that cliffhanger and it goes immediately into Abby's day 3 and it hits that like boss
that would be an
battle.
interesting experiment. I'm curious to see what I'd feel about.
Maybe like a remix, Last of Us Part 2 remix. Just,
That would be
just,
great.
just let us order it any way we want. We can make our own story.
yeah, exactly.
But that said, I imagine, I don't know, within the next couple years, I think there's going to be like a Last of Us complete box set or whatever that people are going to
That would be
be.
great,
It's
sure.
going to have part 1, part 2, maybe some extra, you know, stuff. But I
comes
Setting
with
up-
comes with
setting
a
up part
beta
3.
code for
yeah, probably
For
it'll come with a
the-
beta code for the
factions.
multiplayer.
Yeah.
I will say, if you still are on the fence, you read the review and you're not really sure, I did another video that I think is out.
Yes.
Yeah, because we ended up putting out today. That basically just goes over all the new stuff that they added. And there's quite a bit. Like, nothing that fundamentally changes the game, but there's things like permadeath they added. There's a bunch of extras you can unlock, some gameplay modifiers you can use. I personally really liked playing with permadeath. You can set it for either reset the game when you die, reset the act or the season, I guess, or reset the chapter. And I did chapter for the second playthrough, and that was kind of fun. It fits the themes of the game. It adds more tension to the combat, which is already pretty tense, but like that risk makes it even tougher. Not tougher, but it makes it even more engaging, I would say. But yeah, I liked it.
I'm excited to play it. I'm definitely going to pick it up. I wasn't like 100% sure, not because just because I was like, well, I've played The Last of Us a fair amount of
It's
times.
like, do I want to play it again?
But it has been a really long time. Like, because I like started replaying it right before 2, but I ended up like not. I only got like a couple hours in and stopped, so I never like fully experienced it again recently, and like replaying a little bit of it, the PS3 version for the graphics comparison, and then kind of like, you know, just reading your review and stuff. I was like, yeah, I think I would really like to play this game again.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I will say, if you've already played Last of Us, you want this and you're picking it up, this goes for you as well. I mean, Jordan, I don't know if you plan to or not, but I would do custom difficulty settings. Do not just pick a regular difficulty.
I was thinking about that.
Custom difficulty settings, crank up enemy AI as high as you can. You can make yourself as fragile or spongy as you want. Like do whatever you want, but I genuinely think that if you play with the stupidest AI, you're missing out, because part of the fun of combat, not even the fun, but just the believability of that world, is just how tenacious these enemies are. And I feel like you are genuinely missing part of that experience when you're not being flanked, you're not being pressured, enemies aren't hiding from you and jumping out at you and stuff. Like that changes the pace of combat dramatically. Which I think is really neat. And like I've always loved the combat for Last of Us. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I get why, because it's brutal and it can be hard to watch. But like I find it really intense. So I would say, like, if you pick it up, like, crank up that AI as much as you can. The rest, whatever you think suits you.
Give me those unbreakable shoes.
Like you can do that if you want. Like, even if you want to.
Look, I don't want to do the slow choke out.
I'd probably turn high AI, and then I'd probably turn the like Joel listening mode off, because I remember I did play like the grounded mode on PS3, and I remember really liking that mode.
It's good. It's frustrating, but it's good.
Yeah.
Like, don't do permadeath and grounded. Whoever does that is Iron Man
like
stuff right there.
But yeah, I find myself not liking like weird Batman vision in games. I feel like it's just
neither do I.
Especially
if they don't make sense. Like, if there's context,
sense.
I get it. But in Last of Us, that was when that game came out. I was like, this is really dumb. I'm not going to use this, and I just didn't. It
feels more like a crutch rather than like a.
What game did that first?
I mean, is it Batman? Because everyone calls it Batman Vision. I feel like because it's Batman. Batman did it, and then it appeared in like every game since.
Because I'm like, I can't remember if Batman did it first or if Assassin's Creed did their Eagle Vision first, and it feels like Batman's is kind of like a play off of.
But I think Batman's is more
because it can see through walls.
Prominent. You can see through walls, and also I think because Batman, it was like, well, I'm just gonna keep this on for 90% of the game and not look at the beautiful art, and like, that's just no fun.
I do love it though when a game gives context to that sort of stuff. I'm trying to think of a good one, but like.
I mean, Batman obviously makes sense because he's got his tech.
He's got all of his tech.
It's his tech, but
Witcher
like,
was kind of, they were like, Witcher senses. And I'm like, kind of.
I feel like
not a little video gamey.
I was expecting it in Cyberpunk, like, oh, you can get cybernetics that will like I want an improved map, so I'm gonna get like a different eye that gives me a better map and gives me a better heads-up display, like that stuff.
And that would have made
really
sense. It's been
exciting.
like, oh, there's cameras everywhere. You're just passively hacking into everything and just seeing through. The other
like
world,
in context HUDs, I think are pretty cool.
Sure, yeah.
But even like visions and stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't play Last of Us with listening mode. I will say too, if you want to go for the platinums and you're doing custom difficulty, you don't need to beat it on any difficulty to get plat. You can beat it on whatever you want. So I would set your resources to high, because if you do grounded, you will not be able to open all of the shiv doors. I promise you, because I did it. And
I'll find a way.
Nothing makes me more frustrated than getting to, like, I have almost enough to make a shiv, but I don't. And I search the area tirelessly, and there's nothing. And I'm just like, well, guess we're moving on. I'm leaving this door unopened, and I hate it. Anyway, that's Last of Us.
Cool.
I feel like I've talked enough about Last of Us to last me for another 8 years or so. So
when part 3 comes out.
I was gonna say when they remake it again.
When they remake it.
Another remake part 2 in 8 years.
Yeah.
The other game that I've played, and you've also been playing, John Luke, is Immortality. I will say I don't think we should say too much about it.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about. I don't know. Yeah, I'm struggling to think of what I want to say about it, because it's really damn good.
I mean, you can kind of just say that. It's like, it's a good game.
It's a good
Everyone
game.
should play it. Like,
so for those who aren't aware of Immortality, it is the new game by Sam Barlow, who is known for Her Story and Telling Lies. I played Her Story. I didn't play Telling Lies. I heard it wasn't as good, so I skipped that one. But he's kind of known for these games that like use FMV and where like that's kind of the way you tell the story, and it's sort of unconventional in the case of both her story and this game. You are essentially given like a bunch of different footage that you can kind of put together and to try to like basically piece together what happened. Like that's the point of the game, is to just sort of figure out what's going on with these characters. And I absolutely fucking love the setup for this game. It's essentially about this woman named Marissa Marcel, who is like an actress who famously, she's not a real person, but like in the fiction of this game.
Although
we'll get into that. We'll get into the weirdness of that. So she famously starred in 3 movies, none of which were ever released, and then disappeared after that. And no one knows what happened to her. And there's this really like great about page like on the main menu where it's like a brief history of Marissa Marcel by Sam Barlow, and it's like this Wikipedia like explaining like who she was and how she was in these 3 movies and she disappeared. And they're like, recently in 2020, like people discovered like boxes of archival footage from like the 3 movies, and we have put together this interactive like piece of media for you to be able to like scrub through and look at all these movies. So
I love the idea of like, you could continue, but I love the idea of something like, we found this like all this lost footage, we want to share it with the world, we're gonna give it to the world in these pieces that they have to put together.
Well, because it's like none of the movies were finished, so it's all like, you know, essentially like when you find like reels, right?
Yeah,
and
it's just like multiple takes of scenes and
multiple
stuff.
takes of scenes. Most of the scenes don't have like audio treatment on them, which is like great. This is like an absolute editor's like dream game. Like I'm just like living off of this.
I see
like,
why you, Jake, and Kurt all like.
I mean, I like that. I also like I love FMV games. Like I adore FMV games, and I think this is a really good one. But I love that it leans really hard into the idea that like the game never breaks from the idea that all of this is fictional. Like to the point where, as Kurt told me this morning, if you go on Wikipedia, IMDb, if you go on IMDb, you can find all 3 of the fictional movies on IMDb with the listed actors, like the fake actors in the game as the actors in the movies. I don't know how they did it.
I was just about to ask them, like, can you submit stuff to IMDb? And like,
Jake was saying that's very difficult to do.
Well, it's not that it's difficult. It's just, okay, I haven't done this process in a long time. I used to do it for short films when I was in college. And basically with IMDb, you have to have like a movie that has been into film festivals so it can be confirmed as an actual movie, and then it'll show up there. Now, there are exceptions, like I think like IGN has some shows that are technically on IMDb and stuff. But not anyone can just be like, I'm going to make an IMDb page for this movie, at least at the time. That may have changed now because I haven't.
Well, I'm wondering what
maybe Sam
if
Barlow
all
knows some
3
people.
of these movies actually exist and they just spliced up pieces of them for this game. Could you just submit those completed films?
So that's kind of my guess, that I think these were these movies were actually made, cut together, and submitted to something. I just
somewhere
watched,
out there.
I just watched
at
Nathan
some
For You.
festival.
I just watched an episode of Nathan For You, which I don't know if you guys have seen, but it's Nathan Fielder, and he basically goes to businesses and comes up with these ridiculous strategies. But one of his business proposals was to make a made up film award, so he could give his film an award so it could be considered an actual film. So maybe Sam Barlow made his own film festival in order to
play the
make
movies?
his movies, because that would be, I don't know, like would that be cooler if these movies actually showed up in film festivals at some point and people like years ago and people had no idea?
I would love for you to do this as an investigative like report thing, like just to figure out like how is this possible? How is there an
Although I do
IMDb
wonder if there
page
is
for-
actual enough footage, if they filmed all the footage, because there are some scenes where instead of getting the scene as it was shot, you'll get like the table reading for the scene instead. So they didn't like shoot every scene, or maybe they did, but they didn't put it all in the game, which is like, but like that's where it gets really interesting, because it's not just like you're watching the scene from the movie, you're watching the table readings.
read.
You're watching like the casting call stuff. You're watching like the behind the scenes where the actors are like celebrating. You'll watch. The first thing you watch is like a late night like talk show like interview with Marissa Marcel, like talking to like a David Letterman type where they're about like the movie she was just in. So you're getting all these weird pieces around these movies, and it basically at any point so you start with like a couple clips, and then at any point you can pause and you can rewind, you can scrub through, you can do all these things, and you can kind of like click around with your cursor, and when you see something where like the cursor will kind of give like a little eye icon, it basically means you can click on that, and then it'll essentially find a connecting thing and like
It'll match cut
to a different scene.
Oh, that's interesting.
So for example, for me, I started with the interview where she's talking to the talk show host, and then I clicked on the head of the talk show host, and it suddenly cut to a different clip of that talk show host, a lot older, interviewing somebody else about a different movie. And so like you're kind of going through that. And it's not just people. There will be so my favorite, and I talked to Kurt about this, Kurt did it too, is like I was trying to test the limits of like what can I click on? And so this movie or this game has a lot of nudity in it, by the way.
Jesus Christ, John Luke.
There's a lot of nudity.
I don't think I've seen any.
Really?
I've seen.
I have seen so much nudity.
That's all the proof. You just outed John Lucas.
Anyway, so there was a scene where someone like flashes one of their tits, and
I haven't seen this.
and then I
What?
And I paused it and I said, "Can I click on that?"
John Luke.
And I clicked on it,
John
and
Luke.
it zooms in and then zooms out to reveal a different set of tits in a
right.
different scene, and then I was
Christ.
like, "This is Game of the Year material, everyone. Let's go!"
I've played a couple hours. I think it's probably one of the coolest, closest game like detective like games I've played.
Yes.
Because it really
Haven't gotten
doesn't.
a good one like that in a while.
Yeah, like the best I can think of is Return to Obra Dinn.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't give you a lot to work with when you start. It's just kind of like, hey, look through these, and you really have to piece the stories to all these different movies together. But on top of that, you also have to piece together the story of this actress who you'll only see like in very rare like normally she'll be playing a character, but beforehand, before they slate it and after they cut, though, you'll get like a little glimpse of who she actually is.
Yes.
So you're trying to piece together the narrative to what? There's 3 or 4 films that...
3 films.
There's 3 films that you're getting scenes from, and then you're getting bits of her after, but then there's also a bunch of other characters you're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Like how they fit together in this story. It's really neat. I will say I found it very hard to follow along just because it's...
You have to be that kind of
like
person.
Her story, like I should have like a notebook. pen
100%.
and-
Yeah, I
Because
probably
there are
would.
some detective games like
There-
Deathloop and Forgotten City. They're like, oh, we'll keep notes
The
for you.
The
of, like,
very
what's
beginning, I don't know if
important.
you noticed this, Jake, but even in the tutorial, there was a little thing that happened in the tutorial. Like the first thing that pops up, I noticed something was off. And I immediately turned to Georgia and said, "Grab the notebook. We're writing everything down." And I was like, "Oh, this is one of these kinds of games."
Watson, grab the notebook.
And it's funny because like I start to overanalyze everything. Like there was a moment where a character like stammered their line.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of sounded like a it almost sounded like an awkward cut. And I was like, "Is that a thing? Is that important? Should I take notes? Write that down." It's just like weird stuff like that.
Or
and
like,
I mean,
I'll come up with patterns in my own head too that aren't
Yeah.
necessarily true. Like someone will look at the camera, like, they did it again. They did it again. That's something.
Yeah,
and
that
then it's
person's doing a
nothing.
thing.
I'm like, all right.
it's
cool.
just that guy just looks at the camera too much. But there is, without getting into it, there's some surprising stuff that happens that I was like not expecting, and I was like, "Whoa,
terrifying.
yeah, like genuinely
I'm glad you're all
unnerving,
giving me this ahead of the 3-day weekend where I'll have time
creepy
to-
stuff."
Yeah,
Some
creepy.
games.
I would say it's not like
It's not a horror game necessarily, but it is
unnerving.
It's unnerving.
There's some very unnerving stuff that happens.
Love it.
and just because all it is just you're watching this footage, and like there's no music attached to the footage, but there is music that'll play in the game as you're watching it, and like sometimes it gets real creepy. And you're like, ugh. But
Scaly.
because it's like I think kind of like what you were saying, Jake. It's definitely a game where it's like if you need like a level of hand holding's maybe not the right term, but just like some sort of direction to go in, you might struggle with this game because this game gives you absolutely zero direction. It very much expects you to figure out. But that's what I find fascinating.
The dude's done
about
this
it.
like with all of his games
Totally.
so far. So
And I think
this is his name.
This is by far the
Like-
most successful because the level of production is like
the most successful.
Real,
Because
yeah.
a lot of people are like, oh, the second one's not as good as.
Her story.
her story.
Telling
I,
lies.
and I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you because I didn't play it, but like telling her story was great, but it's also like it's just a woman in
Yeah.
like a room. It's very simple. Where this is like you have all these actors in these sets and these scenes, and the acting is like. I was talking with Kurt about this, where the thing with like FMV games is that when you play them, you kind of know that like these are sort of like really low tier productions. Like they're kind of intentionally like cheap, and a lot of times they kind of lean into the hamminess of it to make it more entertaining. But it's like they're working with the very limitations of what they are, and so they end up being very cheesy and comedic and hammy.
Feels a little Lynchian.
Yes.
I would say.
This has, I would say, a much stronger like production to it, where I found myself believing all of these actors. But it's not just I'm watching these actors, I'm watching these scenes. I'm watching these actors act scenes. So it's actors acting as actors, acting as scenes. And then you have like a director in the scene doing a table reading with his actors, but then there's an actual director directing this director to direct his actors, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, but they pull it off. Like, at no point like did I ever like. I haven't had a scene yet where it felt like the illusion was broken. Like, I believed it the whole time. Like, it really sucks you into it, and you're like, I believe that these are actors making a movie. Which they are, kind of, but it's really the production behind it fascinates me. It's so interesting, and it's that kind of game you want to talk about with everyone. Like I've been playing with my girlfriend Georgia, and we were just like, oh, what's this mean? What's that? And then I was like so excited when I came in today and I saw Kurt was at his desk, and I had to immediately go over to him and just talk to him about it because I was like, I just need to talk about everything that happened in this, and because of how freeform it is, like everyone has a completely different experience in like how they discover stuff. Like
I think the inciting moment for me was different from you.
The inciting
and it was
moment
also different from Kurt. Like
yes,
I told Kurt when I was like.
had the moment.
And he was like, yeah, I did. Mine was different. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, your moment will be different. And then, or even like an interesting one, again, as vague as possible, but there is a part of the mystery is like, why did each film not be released? You know that up front, that none of these films were released, but you're like, why did none of them get released?
It's odd for 3 films.
And so I happened to go to a clip that immediately explained why the second film wasn't released. So I knew right away. And then when I was watching the footage for the second film, I had that context. And so I was like thinking about that the whole time I was watching it, right? And like, okay, I know why this second film wasn't made. And I was looking for the clues
based on that information.
And the inciting incident and people looking at each other and like piecing that together. Kurt, however, did not know what the reason the movie didn't get made or didn't get released to until he got to the scene that shows you why. So he watched the majority of the thing, got to that scene, and then was like, what the fuck is happening? And like wasn't even sure if it was real. If that makes sense. I'm being so vague here, but basically it's just like I find that so cool that like you can just have such a vastly different experience in like the way this game is presented to you, but it still works. And like that's like the most genius like thing about this is that like it should break, right? Like you should have like this weird thing where like I mean maybe it's possible, right? Like maybe someone could just happen to like click on the right things and get to the ending like
sheer
crazy fast.
probability.
By sheer probability it'll happen to somebody, but at least so far, like I think it's just like the way you're able to like naturally piece everything together, no matter what path you take, is just like nothing short of brilliant.
Although I think in one of the interviews, like for her story, like they were talking about like, oh, we designed the information in such a way that if you did accidentally click on very relevant stuff early on, that like it would be like the search results that you would get, like the more important stuff would be like regulated to the bottom, so you'd be less likely to click on it.
Yeah.
So I assume with this game, something else has like been similarly implemented where like the game works to make sure that you don't get all the most important stuff right out of the gate.
That inciting moment that I referenced, I kind of think that only happens after you've seen a certain amount of clips. So I think the reason why we all had different ones is because maybe you saw a clip that much earlier than I did, and that was the one. Like I don't know, it's
like
hard
keeping
to
track
say.
in the background.
Does that mean that like earlier clips, if I go back to them, those things will appear?
I don't know.
Oh, I have to go back and watch every scene now.
But also, like, just playing it last night, I'm like cycling through clips, and I'm like, my controller vibrated differently on this one, and then I'm doing it 100 times. I'm like, I can't tell. Is that the same or is that different? Should I watch this video? What? And like, it's
just imagining Jake in a dark room just staring at a screen, just like pressing
it's
button.
like you get into that mode. It's
before we move on, I just want to shout out Mark Delaney. Reviewed this game for us. He gave it an 8.
Poor guy. The entire review is basically like, I can't explain to you why this game is as good as it is. You just have to trust me on this.
Yeah. His we'll just go to the plus and minuses. The good, drenched in mystery that the player unravels at their own pace. Fantastic performances in production make for an authentic time-hopping story. Scarier than it lets on. Clearly subverts its own niche genre. The bad, one thing, which is what I agree with and why I was having trouble getting into it. So dense in mystery misdirection that it can often feel impenetrable. And for me, I would say that's a pretty that
is true. If you
I
don't buy
agree
into
with
a
that.
mystery right from the get-go.
Because the first night I played for about an hour and a half, and I was tired, and I was like, I can't do this game. I cannot figure out all of these different movies that are happening and all these different characters. And then I came into the office, and Kurt was talking about it, and I was like, I never figured out what this did. And he's like, well, I'm not going to tell you. And I was like, well, now I got to know. So then I went home and played more, and I was like, okay, this game's cool.
It's definitely not a game for everyone, but I think if like what we have said intrigues you, you should absolutely play. Because like, yeah, for me, it was like
I'm gonna try it.
within minutes, I was like, yes, this is my jam. And it's on Game Pass, so it's just...
It is on Game Pass.
Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, you can play it for free. I would say it feels weird to say like it's free on Game Pass. Like, oh, you know,
Technically not. But it's included with
Game Pass. Yes,
it's probably the better way to put it.
Great game though.
Yeah.
Jordan, you got to check out Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn.
Yes, it is the sophomore effort of A44 Games, who made Ashen, a little Souls-like that came out in December of 2018, and I feel like got like quickly overlooked just because that's just a hard time to come out. But like checking out Flintlock.
Wait, Ashen the Souls-like?
The Souls-like, yeah.
Souls-like with guns.
Well, Flintlock's the one with more guns.
Ashen had guns too, didn't it?
It did have guns, but I think Flintlock
has a completely different art style, right? Am I crazy?
Ashen looks kind of like...
Ashen's like post-apocalyptic, isn't it?
It is post-apocalyptic. It looks like that Absolver, the game by the slow clap.
Am I thinking of a different game? What am I thinking
Maybe you're
of?
thinking of a different thing. But
No, okay. I know what you're thinking of. Ashen does not have guns. I was thinking of that other one too. I forget what it's called. Continue. I'm gonna find it.
No, that is right. Yeah,
That's what you're thinking of. Yeah. This is.
Yeah, but the art style with the Flintlock looks completely different.
Oh, it's completely different. They're
Okay,
like,
that's what
we're
I'm
doing
saying.
like a new engine for like a more realistic faces and like art style. They hired a linguist to make like an entirely new language for the gods and stuff like that. I'm like, man, y'all are just like, oh, we took the like little bit of success we had with the first game. We're just going all out with this
Not to
second
be
one.
rude to those devs, because I'm sure they worked very hard on their new engine. I kind of like the way Ashen looked better.
Ashen was really
I think Ashen has a more unique
style.
art style.
And it's going to be one of those things where I'm like, oh, Flintlock looks very pretty, but like one of the things is like trying to like get screenshots from the gameplay of Flintlock was like really hard because every time you like tried to slow down the game at all,
heavy motion
it
blur.
was just and I'm like, so this game might not be as pretty when we're actually playing it on consoles in 2023 as it like looks in its presentations, but that's neither here nor there. But it's one of those things that while I was looking at the gameplay and talking to the devs, I'm like, you can kind of follow the exact like inspiration line of what it is, because you are playing as someone who only wields an axe, has a companion who like aids them in battle, and then uses a combat system where there's the health bar and then there's a little yellow bar where you're trying to like hit someone enough times to like break their armor down so you can land like a strong execution kill. I'm like, well, Ashen came out in late 2018. I'm like, God of War was like the talk of the town, and Sekiro was like 3 months away from coming out. I'm like, this game looks like God of War's like relationship within like the combat style of Sekiro. There's even like a bunch of stuff where it's like, oh yeah, you can like use gunpowder like to easily get up to like the top of buildings, like jump down on people and like hit them from above. I'm like, this is. And they're like, we don't really know of many games that put like really advanced like mechanisms and like gunpowder and stuff like that, like in fantasy worlds. I'm like, Sekiro is a game that puts like high mechanisms and gunpowder into a fantasy world. And like I'm sure like that they were thinking about this like before Sekiro even came out, but it is one of those things that just looking at the gameplay for it, I was like, oh, they're calling their like ally to like do different elemental attacks and like stun the enemies, and Nor, the protagonist, is like doing different axe attacks, like tossing it or like charging it up to do like a stronger strike, and the axe is glowing. I'm like, this is very God of War. And then when she's fighting, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, like you're chipping away and like the armor bar is like filling up, and when it's completely filled, she can like do the execution thing. On mini bosses and bosses, you have to do it like several times to finish them off. And so it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, this is really cool that you guys are like using inspiration from like two very cool games that I like a lot. At the same time, it almost feels a little too close at
like
times.
What's it doing unique?
And I'm like, what about this game is specifically unique enough that I'm like, oh, I definitely want to play this game instead of just going back and playing 2018's God of War or Sekiro again.
One thing that seems kind of interesting though that stood out to me was that traveling camp that you have with you. Did you get a sense on how that works? Like, do you set that up where you want, or is it as you progress the story? Does it appear in different places? So for those who don't know, basically there's a camp, right, that like basically brings important stuff with you, like NPCs, right? And you can, I don't know what you can do there.
Because like you're a part of this army, and so like there's this camp of people who are with you, and so as you meet new characters, they like join your camp, and your camp gets bigger. And Ashen had this too, where like at the very beginning of the game, you defeated these bandits, took over their camp, and as you met people in the world, they would come back to your camp, and like they would open up shops and pave roads and build
like
buildings.
All that stuff is really cool to me.
Yeah, but in this one, it's more like, oh no, instead of it being the hub area is always back at a certain place, the hub area is kind of following you through the world on the adventure. And they didn't show us exactly how that would work. We saw what the encampment looked like, and it was pretty cool. It was like these tents, and like there were these animals and like other characters that like knew who Nor was, and like they were talking about like past adventures. And so I'm like, oh, so there's probably something where this evolves and grows, and that's really cool. But they didn't quite show us exactly like, okay, so at what point in the story does Nor get far enough that like this just picks up and like moves to an entirely new location? Is it like every bonfire type thing that you come across? Is it like further apart than that? And they didn't really talk about that too much, but I am also very excited to learn more about that because my favorite part of Ashen was the whole like community building aspect of it. So to see them kind of be like, oh, we're gonna do that again.
Yeah. Just for the record, the game I was thinking of was Remnant from the Ashes.
A lot of
Not Ashen, but from the Ashes, which is also a Souls-like. That's
Ashen
multiplayer
one.
and there's guns. But yeah, Flintlock seems interesting. I watched some of the gameplay and I'm worried about how it's gonna feel based on what I've seen, and I feel bad because Souls games always feel so good, and I know they're very hard to replicate that feeling, and to an extent you don't want to replicate that feeling, but that makes it really hard for me to get into Souls likes because it's just, this is cool, but I'd rather just play Sekiro. Sekiro, maybe not a Souls like, but I'd just rather play Elden Ring or Bloodborne or Dark Souls or something
the folks
of that
who do
nature.
it the best.
Yeah. But like, I'm curious. I mean, like, I think it's the other systems, right, for me that like need to really stand out to get me to play a Souls-like. And it seems like this game could do it, mostly with the camp stuff. Also, the baristas look pretty fucking cool.
The like ones with, it's so weird because it was like, oh yeah, and there are coffee shops. I'm like, I must have misheard, like coffee shop, like in Souls, like, and then you go into like these little shops and it's like this just crumpled cloak with like this porcelain mask there, and all of a sudden like these 8 arms reach out from the cloak and 2 of them pick up the porcelain mask and like hold it up while the other arms are like mixing coffee for the patrons or like communicating in sign language since it's a porcelain mask and the person doesn't have a face. And that's like your fast travel points, and where you can also like meet other people who are like also attending the coffee shop and like hear gossip for like side missions and stuff like that to go out into the open world and like complete things.
I love that.
But I'm like, that's an interesting like barista, or it's like, oh, there's the cloak, that's pretty cool. It's like, oh my god, you're a body of nothing but arms. What do they connect to? Like, what's underneath the cloak? I want to know.
You don't want to know. Anything else you want to add about Flintlock that before we move on?
No. I'm excited for it. I'm curious as to see what it's going to be like.
Is this supposed to come out this year?
I was originally going to. They delayed it to early 2023.
Okay, so
which
probably
for
like
me,
February.
Yeah.
February 23rd. That's the day everything's coming out.
Sure,
so.
yeah. Just
Remember when everything
throw
was-
it in there.
Assume it's February 23rd.
Remember when everything was supposed to come out February of 2022, and thankfully, like 3 different things got delayed out of
Again.
February.
Yeah. Let's hope that happens because Jesus Christ.
I feel like it
Saints Row
has to.
supposed to come out in February or
Yep,
something.
and it got
Because it's not even
delayed.
just like, aren't you guys hurting yourselves by just everyone putting all their games out at once? Like,
Sonic doesn't care. Sonic's like, we will absolutely come out the same day as God of War.
it's God of War. Yeah, they're courting a different market, I guess. Still, it is weird.
Before we move on, Jean-Luc, you have played Destiny 2 King's Fall Raid.
Oh yeah, the reprise raid, Destiny 2 came out over the weekend. Played that. Still really damn good.
Destiny 2 still good?
Destiny 2 still good. That raid's really good. That raid is 7 years old. And I was like, Jesus, I can't believe it's been that long since that raid came out.
Destiny doesn't even feel that old.
No, I mean
At
Destiny
all.
2 is now 5 years old.
Yeah, that doesn't. I
which
don't
is
like. I don't like that
wild.
one bit. I don't like.
I know,
that.
right? It says something because you like you look at that game and I think mostly because of the art direction, like it still looks really good and it's
Yeah.
still probably the best feeling shooter.
It looks like a late gen shooter from last gen. Like it looks.
Yeah.
It holds up, and on PC obviously it looks better. But
Totally. But yeah, the King's Fall raid was a lot of fun. I didn't go for like the day one race thing because I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Also,
Too
they
old for this shit.
well, they also released it on Friday instead of the usual Saturday because, to be fair, they were like, we would like our employees to not have to work the weekend to solve potential like technical issues
Love
if the
that.
raid
Love that
happens.
for you, Bungie.
So I can't really be mad at them for that. But I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I got work. but it was good. It was a really fun raid. It's still a great raid. And like, I mean, the art direction of that game, like of that raid holds up beautifully. It's so much fun. And Yeah, like I didn't get a single weapon drop, which was fun. I did get the full armor set though, so I'm rocking that, which is cool. But I'm very excited to eventually take you.
I want to do raids. I mean, that's probably the main reason why I've gotten back in Destiny is because I only played Vault of Glass and I thought it was so much fucking fun. But I just, then on, I either haven't been raid ready or I just haven't had enough people to do it. And I remember the first raid in Destiny 2, I was trying so hard to get raid ready and I ended up being out of the country when you guys actually ran in the office. And I was like, come on. Like,
I'm ready this time.
Like, I spent so much time just getting raid ready and I couldn't do it. So I want to go back and do some of those raids.
Well, not that one, because that one they took out of the game, unfortunately.
That's okay. What I played of that raid, I remember liking Vault of Glass more.
It's good. But it's probably one of my weaker ones. And Vault of Glass is good too, but also
I imagine their level design for raids have developed quite a bit over the years.
It would be sad if Vault of Glass is still like one of the best raids because it was the first one.
Yeah.
But I think
maybe I did. What was the second raid?
The second raid was Crota Zen. That's a really short one.
I may have done that one then.
Okay.
I vaguely remember a giant god's face. And I was shooting
god's
at it.
Face.
Yeah.
Could have been Kingsfall.
Maybe it was Kingsfall. Maybe Kingsfall's the one I played. Maybe I should play Kingsfall.
Kingsfall's real good. Yeah, we'll find out, I guess.
That was that Taken King?
It was a Taken King one.
Oh, then I think I did play Kingsfall, actually.
Okay,
I can talk about it too then.
All right, yeah. What'd you think?
I don't remember it. Except for the big god's face.
The big god's face at the end. Yeah. Yeah, you still shoot him in the face. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
He's got, they like redid his model, so now he has like feet. Because before I think it was just a very corporeal, like kind of like just a torso, and they added feet to him. And
Give the man feet.
I guess that's a hot topic in the community, and some people are like, I don't like that feet. It doesn't look right.
But some people really like the
Some
feet.
people are like,
Now that's some feet.
That's some feet right there. Get them on WikiFeets. Orcs WikiFeet voting.
WikiFeets.
But yeah, it's good. I think the plan with you guys is like once we do the Witch Queen campaign, I'll probably want to do the dungeons, which they added after you guys stopped playing, but they're basically like short 3-person mini raids that are like way less intense and you can do in just like an hour and a half. Those are like a great way to get like a little raid experience without like being like time to commit my whole fucking day to this thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll do some raids. And even then, the raids will not be a whole day because you'll be playing with people who
know how to do it.
Who know how to do it. And
well, yeah, that was the fun thing about playing raids though, is just like when I did the King's Fall one, I guess I was just we didn't know. It was like where we're supposed to go.
It is
like,
fun.
It's like, oh, there's this little corridor over here that might lead somewhere, and then you do all this platforming, and then you'd end up at a boss, and we were like, how the fuck do we hurt this thing? And it's like, oh, because you have to transfer these balls. You have to run 3 laps around the boss with these balls, and then once you've done that, it'll lower its shield for 30 seconds.
Yep.
Like, that stuff is fun.
It's fun. Yeah, I agree. It's always been the best part of Destiny. Continues to be the best part. And I look forward to doing it with you.
Lightfall, for sure. I'm gonna get. There'll be a raid for that, right?
There will be.
I will get raid ready for that.
They've made it way easier now. Like they've really tried to like lower the grind barrier so people can do that stuff. So I think you'll be able to do it. No problem.
Cool.
No problem. No issue.
Well, should we move on to our topics of the week here?
Yeah.
First one, Halo Infinite Season 3 delay and split screen co-op canceled.
So I put that in there because I feel like we all as like Halo people have like talked about our disappointment with the handling of the live service, and this is just like it's a real big oof for me.
It's a shame because they came out of the gate so strong.
They really did.
They really did. I just
still
343 just not really understand the concept, or I guess the workload required for a game as a service.
know.
I don't even want to try to guess.
Yeah, I don't even want to guess. I know it's from what I've gathered. I know on at least one aspect of it is that like their backend tools just don't seem designed to like rapidly make changes to the game, because like I remember like day one, people were like the bounty system's bad. And like you just can't get XP after like a certain day, and they're like, and they were like, we will change it. It's gonna take at least a week, and that'll be like a hot fix because like I think their tools were just so slow to like make changes, and so it's not like like that's why like Fortnite is so good, is because I think like Epic like has designed their tools where they can just like put shit in there and just like hit go, and it's just like, oh, Naruto's in the game now.
I think
like,
Call
we're
of
done.
Duty's the same. Apex is the same.
Yeah.
Like
You really have to design your game around that idea now.
Yeah, you'd think with like the amount of stake Microsoft and Xbox has put into Halo, they would have at least. That's unfair to say. I'm sure someone's thought of it, but I don't know.
Maybe it was just like, well, it's
Like
already
you
too
think
late.
you'd
We've
want
already
that
built
process
the
to be
engine
as streamlined as possible. It's such a shame. Like I'll be honest, I don't really want a Halo live service game anyway. But what I do want are new maps.
so you kind of do want a live service game then.
Yeah, it's more. It's less like I'm not like yeah.
I don't really care about like the battle pass stuff. Like I had fun doing the battle pass stuff originally, and like I liked how I'd get a new Halo game. There'd be a certain amount of maps, a bunch of different modes I could play, and then they'd add like a couple maps every couple months or so, and that's kind of what it was, and I was totally cool with that. I really want Forge, to be honest. Like Forge is what's going to get me back into Halo.
People have been messing with that beta. Someone recreated Andy's room from Toy Story.
Which was incredible.
Really?
I
And I'm
didn't
like,
see that
yeah.
clip. It's
Is
so
the beta
cool.
is the beta out?
Some people have access.
Some people
to
have it
it
because this is Forge beta. I think it must be like a wider release,
be-
November.
You should look up like Halo Infinite Forge beta, like Andy's room Toy Story,
Yeah,
like the
it's crazy.
clip of it, like because he's like, oh yeah, I made Jenga, and I'm like, what the?
Yeah, he made like a working Jenga, and I was like, what the heck? But like, and someone was talking about that where they're like, that's going to be the thing. That's the thing that Halo Infinite feels like it's missing is like the community tools.
UGC, yeah.
Right? Like the stuff that's just like, because that's what's kept Halo afloat for all these years is like, it wasn't
You wouldn't
like,
even need a battle pass.
Yeah,
once
it
Forge
wasn't
is
a
in
battle
'Cause
pass, it
Community
wasn't-
will keep making content. Like,
exactly.
My mind was blown in Halo 3 when I finally got online and started downloading Forge maps.
Yeah.
And people, like Foundry, that level Foundry, where you could just do whatever you want, and people would just make these super intricate.
people
like-
are so creative.
Yeah, they just make these intricate obstacle courses, which I thought were so much fun. It was just like, all right, you got to crouch through here, and then you got to make these jumps like this, and then you got to use this gun to blow up a barrel to launch you over the. And it was like that shit I think is so cool, and it's such a unique way to use those tools. And without that, Halo just feels kind of lacking.
It is
really
definitely one
does.
of those things that if you took out the battle pass, if you took out all the new skins and customizations, but it was like, oh, but Forge was there, and like I think Halo Infinite's like story would be very different right now than
Well,
what
Forge
it
and
has
all the
been.
modes, because you also forget it launched with like
That is
half of
true.
the
Yeah.
modes that
Half
are
of them.
standard in a Halo game missing.
But I think like this new update is finally it's adding I think 2 more maps and then the first new weapon that the game has gotten since.
Detachment and Argyle are the maps. That'll be from
then
now
new
until March
equipment.
7th, but then the Echoes Within will add a new weapon, which is the Bandit, which is just like the DMR, I imagine.
think so.
It kind of
yeah.
looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna keep up with Halo because I think that initial, like that game was fun. That foundation was fun. I had so much fun playing multiplayer with that. I want to finish campaign, but I decided to wait for co-op, thinking it would be here in a month or two.
That's the
Well, you can do online.
bigger
Co-op, but-
one is the shelving of split screen, because they totally shot themselves in the foot
By saying this is an important
be
thing.
saying
to
this is an
Halo.
important thing that all Halo games in the future will have going forward. That is specifically what Bonnie Ross said. And like, look, I get that things change, but like that was like such a disaster for them with Halo 5 that they like before Infinite was even announced, that was the first thing they said was, don't worry, it'll have split screen. And they're canceling the split screen.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, you know, I'm sympathetic to like the realities of game development, but it's also just like, oh my God, like really? Like, yikes. Like,
I'm really wondering like cuz they'll probably never say it publicly out loud, and I'm like I would love to know what the story is on the back end, like why are they canceling it at all? Like what is so difficult about implementing this that they're like, it is just better if we shelve this project than keep
I'm
trying
willing
make
to
it
bet
work.
it was just too much to have. Like, I bet the Xbox One probably played some role in this because it would be weird to not have that shipped to the Xbox
this game
One.
is technically on Xbox One.
But I think it's just too much for one Xbox to handle two people. Like one Xbox One handling two people that are far apart. Because I know that beta they released, I think there was a limit of 200 meters or something
Which
like that.
is also not great.
They were tethered, which people were complaining about, and I imagine that you have to have that tethering range on a split screen device. Like if you're playing split screen, you have to have that tethering range. I imagine.
I
don't know.
completely forgot that this game also launched on Xbox One. It's such a Series X and S game in my mind.
So I don't know. I imagine what they did was they looked at the data of who still played split screen on Master Chief Collection, and they were like, well, we're having trouble getting it running on the Xbox One. This is all conjecture, so don't quote me on this. But
you're probably right though.
I imagine it was just because to be honest, I want split screen, especially because they said it would be there. But even if I went through and played all the old Halo games again, I wouldn't play them on split screen. I'd just tell my friend, I play them online,
No,
but I agree that the issue is that they said it would be there and now it's not.
It's the fact that they said they would be there and they made
Exactly.
a very, very
They
definitive
commitment
public
to it. They made a commitment to it.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't, and they were like, "Hey, we're not doing split screen anymore. We looked at the data, whatever. Xbox One can't do it. It doesn't matter what it is." I'd be like, "All right, fine, cool. I'll move on." As long as co-op is there,
which it's not. So that's
to me is the bigger problem. The fact that I still can't play co-op because it's I want to finish that game. I really do because I liked it, but I waited because.
It's a pretty good campaign.
Yeah. But because I was I have played every single Halo game in co-op except 5. I didn't play 5.
You did not miss it.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good.
In co-op, and I don't want to play. I want to experience it fresh in co-op because that's what's fun to me about Halo. So it's a shame that this is happening.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
I'm about to say I don't foresee it happening, but Chris Pereira put an somewhat interesting idea into GameSpot's new Slack earlier today, where he's like, "Oh, I wonder if when the Activision deal goes through, assuming that it will, and I'm pretty sure at this point that it will." Would Microsoft Xbox ask some of the COD devs to support 343 in Halo, or even ask them to make a separate Halo game that's completely different from Halo Infinite? And
all the poor support studios that were we're finally free under Activision, and they're like, now you make Halo forever.
I doubt it.
It's there's so many Call of Duty support studios, and it's I'm not sure if Xbox would be you know what, we are still going to ensure that there's 3 different Call of Duties in development at the same time.
I think they might share technology, but I don't think they would necessarily be all right, we're going to take this people.
Yeah, I imagine Phil Spencer will not want to, as he's kind of said it before, not want to really mess with the business too much of the people they acquire. Even if they maybe should in a couple of cases, specifically around Activision. But in the case of just saying you now work on this, they probably for the best they don't do that. Yeah. I think he knows that.
The next Halo game will be a remake of Tony Hawk.
Is more just for so long, Halo has been Microsoft's thing. It's that and Gears, right? It's
and Fable, for me. Just me.
I'm not sure if Fable. I understand what you're saying.
Not
I'm not sure
anymore.
if Fable
but
is
as a kid, Fable was the reason I got Xbox consoles.
But people think of Master Chief when they think of Xbox in the same way that
I don't think Xbox thinks that way anymore, because when they closed down Lionhead, I think that pretty definitively said how they felt about Fable, even though they're making a new one. But my point is that they've for so long hung their hat on we always have Halo, and I feel Halo has been so rocky for so long now. At what point do you look at all of this kind of bad press around Halo and be if we keep putting Halo as our premier thing and it's having all this drama around it, at what point do you go, this is kind of really bad for the brand of Xbox as a whole? It's what if every game Naughty Dog put out just kept having
got
all
leaked.
these.
Oh wait,
or just kept having all these issues, right?
Well,
or just
to that point, PlayStation has a lot of mascots.
It's true. They don't have just one thing.
They don't have just one thing. They can afford for Horizon Forbidden West to be you know what? It was good. it wasn't fantastic. Like God of War and Last of Us Part 1 are still coming out.
True,
like, this
that's
year.
true. That's true.
So it's like they're not like Xbox, where it's like everything's riding on Halo right now.
But it's
Halo
like,
has to work.
but you know what I mean? Like it's just like at some point I'm like, when does Microsoft maybe like not? I don't know. They will not never let Halo go necessarily, but like maybe stop being like, maybe we should
Back off.
We should try and find something else. Maybe we shouldn't keep trying to put all our eggs in the Halo basket because it's not really helping us anymore.
I feel like that's going to have to happen eventually. I mean, even it might be for different reasons, though. I think the reason it might happen is just because they've acquired so many studios and so many like.
I mean, maybe that's why they bought
IPs.
Activision. Like Call of Duty's our new Halo.
I mean, like Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be. They're going to make that the Microsoft thing, right?
Oh,
like the
yeah.
Xbox.
But they
that's
also
gonna
can't
be the
rely on that
mascot.
right now because that's what
It's
8
years
years
away.
out. Like,
To be fair, it's not like every Bethesda game launches perfect either.
That's
Recently.
true. But I think it's more that's just like I could see that as they've been acquiring new studios, maybe they kind of ease off Halo as their mascot and try to like change the conversation around some of these other games that will become their mascot. I mean, even like if the Activision deal goes through, which I imagine at this point it probably will, like Call of Duty, right? Like even though I think they've said they don't want to mess with what that gets released on, but I imagine eventually there's going to get to a point and they're going to be like, this is our franchise, you know? Like we're not putting on PlayStation.
Totally.
We'll put it on PC, but we're not putting on
there will be at least one Call of Duty game, even if it's just like a single player 10-hour experience that exclusively releases on Xbox.
Also, I think at the end of the day, it might be better for Halo if Microsoft like doesn't put
Backed off a
little bit. Like
Give it a break.
like
that's got to be so much pressure to be like you are like the thing that's carrying Xbox for so long. Like let that team just like maybe like breathe a little bit.
yeah.
But the devs that they've acquired, they'll release their games at some point. We'll see the Outer Worlds 2, Avowed, Starfield.
I hope so. I still
They got a
believe
lot of
like
RPGs
they have a
coming.
lot of cool things coming, but there is that part
Indiana
of me that
Jones.
Indiana Jones. I do feel like a little. I don't know. COVID kind of fucked everything up, but it's like that little impatient where it's like I feel like every year Xbox is like we have so many great
Next year.
things. Yeah, next year's
year.
gonna be Xbox's year, baby, and I'm sitting here being like,
I do wonder
When's
what
it
this
happening?
looks like in a world without COVID, where I think a lot of Xbox's devs.
I
are
will
just-
say-
will Xbox's year finally come? I've been waiting since 2014, Jordan.
I will say Psychonauts 2, the best exclusive I've played so far this generation. I
Sure.
love that game.
Well, it actually wasn't exclusive. It did come out.
That's
on
true. It
PS4.
came out on PS4, so never mind. The best.
you basically
my-
just
you're
say
right.
Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon are.
So, Skill Up tweeted, Destiny 2 will have delivered 2 major expansions and 4 seasons worth of content in roughly the same amount of time it's taken Halo Infinite to get Forge and cancel couch co-op.
Okay, when you put it like that.
Absolutely bodied.
But I guess to your earlier point, it's like, does Halo need to be a lot of live service games are like, oh no, we update our things like every on a 3-month cycle, and Halo might survive on like a 6-month cycle.
Maybe, but the problem is they never presented it that way.
Yeah.
They always presented it as like we are competing
think-
in this space.
Yeah.
I think too, right? Like Halo was able to get away with that during the Xbox because what competition did it have on consoles for shooters?
That's fair.
It didn't have competition. So it was like friends would come over and we would play Halo, and that is
For
it.
hours.
You know? For
Just
hours.
into like 3 a.m.
And like part of it, yes, Halo, that original Halo, Halo 2, even Halo 3 were like great fucking games. Like I loved playing them, but also what else were we gonna play? You know, like Fortnite wasn't a thing. Like
It wasn't until Call of Duty.
Call of Duty 2 came out, and that was the first game where I remember friends coming over and they wanted to play that instead of Halo, and I was kind of bummed because I always preferred Halo, but I was like, all right, I guess we're doing Call of Duty now. And then that happened, and now it's like the audience wants that. The audience wants that. They want a game that they can keep coming back to, which isn't for me, right? Like I'm okay with a Halo game that just updates every 6 months, maybe even less. Like I'll return to it every now and then. I'll play it and I'll be like, yeah, Halo's still fucking fun. But most of the people, that's not what they want. And things like Fortnite, things like Call of Duty, they've set a precedent for like how these games should be. And then to your point, Halo Infinite positioning itself as one of those games is just kind of like,
Yeah.
but it's not. And now the precedent that these other games have set is hurting your game.
Yeah, you feel like you're behind the times. And they had that opportunity because it's like fundamentally gameplay wise, there is still no shooter that plays like Halo.
And
Like, remember when, like, the-
time to kill?
yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I prefer
like
that.
there's
when
a
the
game
multiplayer like launched and everyone just started, and it's like, oh, this feels so good.
Yeah.
There's
Totally.
literally nothing on the market that feels like this except for Master Chief Collection.
Right. Or like Splitgate, I guess.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think we've talked enough about Halo.
I think so, yeah.
Assassin's Creed Mirage got announced. We don't know too much about, or we haven't seen much from it. But we're supposed to see more. What, September 10th? Is that Ubisoft
Yeah,
forward?
that's Ubisoft Forward.
But it's supposed to be it's supposed to take nods from the original Assassin's Creed. You play as Basim from
Valhalla.
And there's no leveling system, from what we understand. Are you guys interested in this?
If they come out and say this is a like breezy 10 to 15 hour game, abso-fucking
30 hours. 30 hours. That's the patience I'll have. If it's more than 30 hours.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you. But like,
Yeah.
if they were like just a nice, quick little jaunt into some Assassin's Creed
Yeah.
fun, I am all in. I mean, have they said it, or is just the rumors were like, what, it wasn't going to have like no level tree or anything like that?
I don't-
It's
don't-
not confirmed. It's the reports that there's no leveling system. There's no male or female option choice. There's
I'm
no
bummed about
like
that.
ability tree or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's just like to what Jake's point earlier. It's like Assassin's Creed 1 through
This is
5
AC
again.
vanilla,
Like,
right? Like,
Assassin's Creed Vanilla. That's what I should call it next time. I'm optimistic. I think I'm gonna have to be optimistic. Like I liked the RPG games, but I never liked them enough to finish them, and that was always kind of my bigger complaint. Like I don't really want to spend 80 hours, 100 hours. How long was Valhalla?
It's a very long game. It's a very long game.
Because like I was
long.
the reason I say 30 hours is because I was pretty engaged in all those games for about 30 hours. I would say Odyssey I was engaged in a little bit more. In Origins, I think I would have finished had I not had to play at event, and then I lost like 40 hours of progress, and I was like, all right, I'm done.
I remember Slack messaging Callie at like 3 a.m. during the review process for that. I'm like, you're probably asleep, but when you wake up, I just want you to know I have found the 4th map in Valhalla, and the game isn't slowing down anytime soon. So I'm not sure if I'm going to make the embargo.
Jeez.
I'm just calling to let you know the review will not be finished.
I'm like, it just won't end. It just keeps going.
Oh my god.
But I mean, Jordan, you are you've kept up with the franchise. You've
I've
finished all
played
of them.
every single
Yeah.
game, so like
To
this
completion.
could be a visual novel, this could be a card game, this
You're
could
gonna
be an
play no matter
RPG.
what.
I'm gonna play it. Like,
I mean, are you looking forward to like a break from what they've kind of been doing? Because
yeah.
I think me and Jake are on record not really being a big fan, but you obviously have enjoyed the recent Assassin's Creed. So
I enjoyed his strong word. I really like the story of Assassin's Creed, but the gameplay has. I'm not even.
Worn out its welcome?
I think Tam told me I wasn't allowed to write it, so I like tweeted about it. But when I reviewed like the last expansion for Valhalla, there was like a line where I was like, I'm just really fucking tired of this gameplay, and I was like,
imagine if that's how your review started.
I was just like, I really like this story and character, but I can't keep playing this game. I'm like 170 hours in, and I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So like a return to the whole social stealth thing would be very nice to see, and I'm inclined to believe like the reports and the rumors just because the image itself looks like old school Assassin's Creed. Like this looks like an advertisement we would have gotten like during like the Altair and Ezio era of Assassin's Creed games.
I think because for me the setting has always been the main thing with the Assassin's Creed games for me. Even if I'm not like I've been sick of the gameplay for a while, but I will still always play those games because I like walking around Egypt. I like walking around Greece. I like walking around was England when the like all of that stuff I think is so cool, and I'm excited for the setting. knowing that if this game is smaller, I'm excited to see how detailed that setting will be when they're not expected to like fill out a massive map with all these different regions and stuff. Like if it is just a city with some area outside, but that city is really detailed. There's a diverse population that has like interesting schedules that they attend to. Like that kind of stuff has me interested. And also I think back to Assassin's Creed 1 and like playing games like Hitman. Like I wonder if
God, that'd be so cool.
the assassination will feel more like that, right? Like I'll actually be, because that's kind of what Assassin's Creed wanted to do with the original. It was like, all right, you got to investigate your target before you kill them. But it ended up just being like, I'm gonna sit on a bench and listen to these people.
It came out in 2007. Like
It did. I can't give it too much shit because it did a lot of cool things. But like
being an actual assassin, right?
that's what I hope for. You know, like I want a more focused Assassin's Creed game where if I want, I can just kind of explore this world, and like when there is an assassination, I can kind of decide how I want to do that. You know, like if I want to be that assassin who stalks and learns everything about this character and the perfect time to kill them, cool. Or if I just want to like, I don't know, jump down from a building and stab him in the throat and run away. Like I want to be able to do that.
I still can't believe that Hitman beat Assassin's Creed to like that sort of video game, because I feel like that style fits the idea of Assassin's Creed.
Hitman did it before Assassin's Creed was a thing.
But
they lost their way for a little bit.
And then they came back with their very excellent trilogy.
Yep.
But I would love if this new Assassin's Creed was like, we basically just blatantly copied the Hitman trilogy, so it's not like as goofy as Hitman is, and like the parkour system is much better than Hitman's parkour system, but otherwise it's just the exact same thing.
I would be
and there's a hidden blade.
I would be more than satisfied with that. I wouldn't even be mad. I'd be like, absolutely, let's go. That sounds great.
But yeah, just like more interesting way, like I don't know, like even if it's kind of dumb, like there's construction happening and your target walks under it and you just throw a dagger at it and it falls and kills them.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what happened? And then you just walk away, like you blend in with the crowd and walk away, and that's it. Like that. Those are the moments I want in an Assassin's Creed game now. You know, like when Origins was the thing, I was kind of interested because I was like, this seems like a competitor to The Witcher 3, and I really like The Witcher 3, but they kind of wore that out pretty quickly. I don't know. I'm optimistic.
And please be short. Please,
please be short. Yeah, that's really all I want.
Oh my god, if it's a 15-hour game, oh my god. Like,
did you guys also see the rumors about the remake of Assassin's Creed 1?
No, I didn't actually.
So yeah, apparently there's a rumor that Assassin's Creed Mirage will launch with like an expansion pass. And at some point in that expansion pass, there will be a remake of Assassin's Creed 1,
just like
which will tie into DLC to Assassin's Creed Mirage that will take place in some of the locations that Assassin's Creed 1 takes place in.
Interesting.
Which is interesting because I would be super curious for an Assassin's Creed 1 remake, because I feel like that game is ripe for a remake because there's so much they could.
Like a proper remake.
Like a Resident Evil.
If it is a remastered, then I will not touch that game.
There's no way. There's no way they could do that. I mean, did you see that? There was a thing a couple of years ago, or maybe it was a year ago, where like one of the developers on Twitter was talking about how like the reason why the side missions in Assassin's Creed 1 were so like bad and rushed is because like somebody asked them to put it in like a week before the game was to be shipped, or some nonsense like some weird nonsense where he's like, I made those in like a few days, and I was like, well, that explains
when did you sleep
everything. I think it was like they were like something like I could be making this up, but it was like the CEO's kid played it and was like, there's not enough to do in this, and they're like, make some side missions or like some nonsense like that, and I was like, I believe this. I don't know if this is true, but I believe it.
It is a rumor, but I kind of believe it because I think if Mirage is supposed to go back to old school Assassin's Creed, they'd already have a improved engine that would already be built out in theory. So I imagine
environmental designs built out.
Yeah, I imagine that is within the realm of possibility.
And I want to say Valhalla takes place like decades before
Because the
Assassin's
assassins
Creed
you meet
1?
in the beginning of Valhalla look like Altair
Yeah.
era.
Yeah, well, I mean, you
like-
play as Basim, who's in
Yeah,
Valhalla,
so
right?
like
So-
yeah. So,
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
So like, if this is a prequel, it's like, oh, this is probably like 200 years or something like that before Assassin's Creed 1 takes place. So it would make sense that there would be like some overlap in the setting somewhat.
yeah.
I wonder if the story's going to try to tie into Assassin's Creed 1. If that's the
know.
case, it probably will. And,
It probably
and
will.
that story will make
Well, because
even
now
less
they're
sense
looking
to
back
me.
and they're like, oh, Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 are like too ordinary. They're not as fantastical as like
That's
the
what
later.
I was talking about that with Jordan
Assassin's
earlier
Creed
in the
games.
office about how I was like, remember how the Abstergo stuff in Assassin's Creed 1 actually felt kind of like cool and mysterious, and you're like, ooh, what's going on? Like corporate espionage and Illuminati, and like Desmond was just in like 2 rooms the whole time and you didn't know what was happening, and it felt so interesting. And I'm like, and look where we are now. It's just a bunch of nonsense.
People being reincarnated and born in new bodies and.
All right. Should we do this last story?
Yeah, let's do this last
let's
one.
do it.
Courtesy of our sister site Giant Bomb.
Yeah, so supposedly there's supposed to be a Nintendo Direct sometime soon.
This month,
September.
I think. Yeah.
This month, that is going to have a lot of Zelda information, and everyone get out your Nintendo Direct rumor bingo card, because we might see a Metroid Prime trilogy remaster. The minute I saw that, I was like, this is bullshit. I don't believe any of this.
If they had
Fuck
just
this.
said the Zelda games, I've been like, maybe. But
Like,
as soon
I
as
could
they
buy that.
threw in Metroid Prime stuff too, I'm like,
'Cause
there's
it-
no
that's how it
fucking
always
way.
is.
There's
It's like-
no fucking way.
It's always like the stuff that's somewhat believable, and then they get to, oh yeah, and Metroid Prime is trilogy,
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, fuck you, no way, I'm not buying it.
That's on the same level at this point as like, oh, and Mother 3 will finally become
Yeah.
localized.
Like, I imagine, to be honest, I imagine the Metroid Prime trilogy is primed and ready to go. I think they are waiting for the right time. They're going to wait for when Metroid Prime 4 has like a solid release date,
Yeah.
or at least internally they have something
gameplay trailer
that they
they
can
can show
share.
off.
And then they'll be like, but to hold you over until then, we've remastered
Sure.
Metroid Prime.
And I also believe that a remake of, or a remaster of a, I'm sorry, port, I guess it wouldn't even be, just of Ocarina, or not Ocarina.
Wind
I
Waker
can't talk.
and
Wind,
Twilight Princess.
Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Wind Waker and Twilight
Over
Princess.
for Breath of the Wild too.
Yes,
at this
I do
point.
believe that those also will come to Switch.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. We were supposed to see more about Breath of the Wild this year, right?
Yes. So if
Because that's
this
what
is
they
a,
said in the last direct.
this
or
So
is
this
a-
might be
directs
the
ago.
direct where it's like,
Yeah.
and to hold you over, here's Wind Waker and Twilight
Yeah.
Princess
So-
HD.
Yeah, or maybe they'll give another trailer, because like if you have like a Zelda focused direct and then you don't show any Breath of the Wild, the gamers will riot. So like,
Yeah,
you gotta,
I don't think
you gotta give something.
I don't
at
think they
least.
can show another trailer. I feel like they have to show like a gameplay segment at this point,
Oh sure.
because they've had 2 trailers, and that first trailer looked cool, but it just left people with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want Breath of the Wild 2 to come out so I can see Max break that game.
right.
It's like, oh, yeah, that's all I'm here for.
The content and clicks that we'll get.
Yeah.
As soon as Breath of the Wild 2 comes
But
out.
anyway, this report came from Jeff Grubb of GameSpot.
Sorry, what? Who?
Jeff
like,
Grubb
excuse
of Giant Bomb.
Joining the team.
I don't want to read all of this, but yeah, apparently there's supposed to be a big Zelda Direct, which I hope it's right, and I believed it until I saw Metroid stuff, and then I was like,
Would you guys play those again?
I would play Wind Waker 100%. I would play that game again. Twilight Princess,
Probably
no.
not.
Absolutely not.
I'm like literally the exact opposite.
I don't feel as strongly negatively towards Twilight Princess, but I do feel like I feel like I need more time, and because I did play it on Wii U.
That's
so
what
I feel
I
like
did too.
I would like where Wind Waker I could like pick up any time of the day. Twilight Princess, I think I'm like, I need a little bit.
It's
of
hard though. Both Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have the same problem of like every time I want to try to jump back into those games, I forget. I'm like, oh right, the first like hour and a half of both of these games is so fucking slow.
Yeah.
Yes,
it takes
but-
forever for the adventure to
but
start.
Twilight Princess is way worse than
Oh
Ocarina
yeah,
about it.
100%. But like,
yeah, do you want to round up some cattle? No.
No,
I don't. I really don't.
I want them to do it, but I don't know if they will. I really want them to port those 3DS versions of Ocarina and Majora's to the
Yeah.
Switch as well. I think
Just put
those,
all of them on Switch.
I would, those
reinstall
are
the
great
game.
versions of those games, and I think that would be cool if they did that.
Well, I don't know. Anything left to say about the Nintendo Direct? Sorry, I yawned right then.
Okay. Really excited for
Really
those
excited,
Zelda
yeah, really.
games.
I believe. I don't know. I'm gonna say I'm like 80% believe it, except for the Metroid Prime part. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I think. I think the reason we're getting, we might be getting Wind Waker and Twilight Princess is because they're going to announce a delay for Breath of the Wild too. That's my guess, because I don't. It's Nintendo, and I don't. I
could
feel
see
like
that.
they would strategically wait to give these games to people because they know people want them.
Sure.
Right. And I feel like the best time to do it is when they have to say, hey, we have to push this. We have to push this game back even longer.
Although does Breath of the Wild 2 even have like a 2023 like date or anything, or is it just kind of in
I
the
don't
ether
know.
of like it's?
I think it's just
coming?
kind of in the ether. But,
I don't
but
know.
I
Yeah.
think that game's gonna take even longer, and that's why.
Yeah.
All right. Question of the week. We'll make this quick so we can get out of here and wrap this thing up. But what's been your favorite gaming experience with someone that doesn't typically play video games? Now, this is an
Doesn't
easy
typically play games.
answer for me. But if you guys have something, I will throw the floor to you.
I played through Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic with my mom because she's a huge Star Wars fan.
Okay.
But doesn't play games. And I was like, Knights of the Old Republic, fantastic Star Wars game, great story. I think you'd really like it. So
Did she?
she did. She had a really good time with it. And then we afterwards started playing through Mass Effect, but we did 1 and then we got like halfway through 2 and then I like went to college and then never like finished it, unfortunately. But those were fun. I had a really good time.
Yeah.
Left your mom hanging.
The other experience I'd have, it's less of like a specific playing a game, but I just always think about how like my dad always loves to ask me about like what the newest games are because he just is really interested in how good they look.
Yeah.
So
just
he's
the
always
tech.
Yeah, so he'll always be like, "Oh, I heard the new like I remember like Assassin's Creed for a while or just like The Last of Us or whatever." He'd be like, "Oh, that game looks really good." I'm like, "Yeah, it looks great, new hardware." Like so it's always funny. It's a very dad thing to do.
Yeah.
And I always just love that about him.
I would say my mom really enjoys watching me play Assassin's Creed because for her she was like, oh, this is like the pinnacle of like graphical excellence, and I had to keep reminding him like it's
kinda
not. Like some of the games are very pretty, but
Maybe Assassin's
not.
Creed 1 at the time, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was
that
one of those
way.
things where since Assassin's Creed was coming out every single year, like my
Yeah.
mom could always expect like, oh, during like the Christmas break when Jordan doesn't have school, he's
gonna be
playing
playing
the new
Assassin's
Assassin's
Creed.
Creed.
So that was
and
her
she would using that to
barometer,
like
yeah.
figure out where graphics were in terms of video games.
That's funny.
Mine's Rock Band. I remember when I got that.
Oh,
I got that
yeah.
for Christmas, and just everyone, like all my family, like was super into it. Friends who came over who didn't play video games was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna play Rock Band." And I remember Rock Band Beatles in particular being a big. hit.
Sure.
But yeah, like those games, I remember just I was like the Cool House for a bit because I had the whole setup.
Oh yeah.
Rock
probably
Band,
mine.
Guitar Hero, Wii Sports.
Guitar Hero, yeah, was probably a good one too. Wii Sports, kind of.
Wii Sports
At
was
least-
more like I showed it to my parents and non-gamer friends, and they really liked it. And I was like, "This is kind of simple for me. I'm going to do other stuff."
Yeah.
And they kept playing it. They're like, "No, Wii Sports is excellent." I'm like, "Sure, whatever. I'm going to play Mass Effect 2." Like, again.
Real game.
I remember one time I was visiting my grandma in Washington, and she was like, "Oh, do you mind like going through this box and like help me clean stuff out?" And I was going through, and she had a DS in there. She'd never played games at all. And I was
Whoa.
like, "Grandma, why do you have a DS?" And she was like, "Oh, the game called Cooking Mama interested me."
Cooking Mama.
And I was
gonna
like,
go
I was like,
Brain
I was like, "Did you play it?" And she was like, "I played a little bit of it, but I didn't like it." And she was like, "You can have it if you want." So I got a DS because she was
Wow.
just like, "I don't
Holy shit.
really, don't play this game, don't care." So I was like, "All right, I'll take it."
I did play Wii Sports once with my grandparents, and my grandma did almost destroy the TV because she did not put the slip on. Like it went just barely to the left of it, and I was like, "Okay, we're done playing."
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Fun times, everyone. All right. Well, that's been episode 2 of the Jake Jordan Jean Luc podcast. We'll be back next week with GameSpot After Dark. Hopefully tomorrow and Lucy will be back. Lucy's maybe not. She's not feeling great.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, I
Hopefully,
think
hopefully.
she'll be back.
I think
Well,
so.
we'll see
Yeah.
how busy he is.
Yeah.
We'll see. If not, it'll be episode 3 of the Jake Jordan John Lee podcast.
Yeah, he's very busy with the mobile swipe showcase,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
will be airing the same day. I believe it's next Thursday at 10 a.m. I think I have that right.
Hopefully not the same time as the Nintendo Direct if it happens, right?
Oh my God, what do you think?
Wait,
would
so are we
happen?
gonna do Swipe, possibly the Nintendo Direct,
And then just immediately go into After Dark?
at all on the same
wow.
day?
Oh,
The event will take place during the week beginning September 12th. So
no,
maybe not the same day.
No, it'd be
Okay.
after. It'd be
Yeah,
after.
it'd be
We're
after.
good. We're good. Okay.
But anyway, before we go, Jordan, anything you want to plug?
Please read my review of Flintlock, please.
Your review?
Preview. Haven't reviewed it yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so tired. So much shit is going on. But yeah, I got nothing else. I I can talk about yet.
All right, yeah. Some things I can't talk about yet either. Jean-Luc?
Yeah, I got a game I'm playing that I can't talk about, but I can
We all
talk
got
about.
games we can't talk about.
I can if you look at what's coming up really soon, like in maybe the next week or so, you
Good
could
figure out.
what I may be playing, and probably have things to say about it really soon. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of Last of Us stuff up. We did a review, which you can check out. I put a lot of time and effort into that review. I hope it shows. Really proud of how that came out.
It's a very good review.
It's a very good review.
I have there's a graphics comparison between the two that Jean-Luc helped me with that you should also check out if you want to see how good it actually looks. There's also a Is The Last of Us Part 2 Worth It that just went up that is pretty good. Basically, that just outlines all of the new stuff, and then from there you can decide if you think it's worth it or not. And then there's some gameplay, some 4K gameplay of the opening if you want to, cry for a little bit. You can do that. But anyway, that's the episode. We'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.